Welcome into PFF TV. I'm Cam Mellor, joined today by Mike Renner. We're continuing our State of the Franchise series, taking a look at all 32 NFL teams as we get into training camp. They kick off next week. Today's episode, we're talking about the Houston Texans. A lot of talk this offseason about their whole general manager situation. They may go through the whole year without a GM. That obviously weighs heavily on the Jadeveon Clowney extension talks, which may not come to fruition. So here we are, though. Let's switch it up. They have Deshaun Watson. They have DeAndre Hopkins. They have Will Fuller and a couple of weapons for Watson to get the ball to. It's all going to come down to the offensive line, though, in Houston this year.
It really is. Deshaun Watson last season sacked more than any other quarterback in the NFL, and they go through this offseason. You know, they add Matt Khalil, who has not been great. There's a reason why he was gone in Carolina, has had injury issues himself, and then he used a first-round pick and a second-round pick on tackles Titus Howard and Max Sharping there to try to address it, but I'm not sure it's going to necessarily get better overnight, and with how hampering it was to their success last season, there's only so much Deshaun Watson and these weapons can do. If you're not going to be able to consistently protect him, if you're going to take all those negative plays, I don't see them necessarily getting over the hump here right away. I don't think it's going to get better overnight. This might be a couple-year process to get that offensive line right.
Makes sense. And Watson has to kind of learn, I think, in this coming year or two for him in this offensive line rebuild to kind of protect himself and stay away from some of those sacks and maybe learn to throw the ball away. It's not the worst thing.
I think that is the biggest thing, is it has to be schemed around and it has to be drilled into Deshaun Watson. Hey, you're not going to make it through a full season healthy the way you played last season. We saw how badly they got torpedoed 2 years ago when he went down with the ACL injury. You're going to take that many hits. You're just not going to be able to stay healthy for 16 games. It's not feasible, and a lot of it falls on him. He had the third longest time to throw of any quarterback in the NFL. He always wants to make something out of nothing. When nothing's there right away, he's not going to just dump it and live to see another play. He's going to try to make plays, and we charged him with 14 sacks on his own last year, so it's not just the offensive line, but it also kind of is the offensive line because they protected those tackles a lot, but Julian Davenport led the NFL in terms of pressures allowed. The right tackles with 67, the right tackles combined for 64, which would have been the most of any right tackle in the NFL also. So the tackle position, I'm not sure Titus Howard coming from Alabama State, Max Sharping coming from Northern Illinois, necessarily going to be the answer with how steep the learning curve is coming from, in Alabama, coming from a blue blood and facing top pass rushers. These guys coming from an FCS program and a MAC school, I'm not sure it's going to necessarily hit the ground running in the NFL.
And they do have one redeeming quality, maybe in Nick Martin there at center, that continuity with him and Watson.
They have a lot of young guys on the roster. Someone could take that next step. A Julian Davenport, a Martinez Rankin, they could make that leap. But they weren't necessarily high picks. Those guys were mid-rounders. Banking on them is still risky.
Makes sense. So that's it, the offensive line. Let's go to the defense, though, real quick. We'll hit on them very quickly. It's Jadeveon Clowney, obviously, is the headline there just because of the contract situation. They have Watt. They have Whitney Merciless. They have a talented linebacking core there. It's the secondary that gets the revamp. They lose Tyrann Mathieu, although just 1 year. Andre Hall retires. Kareem Jackson and Kevin Johnson leave in free agency. And yet they still have kind of a similar secondary look and feel. There'll just be new faces in the depth.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a transition, but I'm not sure they necessarily take a step backwards. Justin Reed played extremely well as a rookie, and safety is a difficult position to play well at his rookie season, so you can expect him to take a step forward. Tashawn Gibson has had some great years in Cleveland and in Jacksonville. I think he'd come in and produce seamlessly what we saw from Tyrann Mathieu, because as good as Mathieu is around the line of scrimmage, he was limited on the back end. Tashawn Gibson, much more of a free safety, much more comfortable playing deep down the field, making plays on the ball there. And then Jonathan Joseph, the ageless one at cornerback, you feel good about him still continuing that. And then Bradley Roby has had an up-and-down career, taking a prove-it sort of deal. I think he needs to prove it this season in Houston. You're going to see his A game this year.
And they did bring in some rookies, Derek Beatty, Lonnie Johnson, and Xavier Crawford as well. So there will be some new faces that Texans fans will have to get used to, but they do have that front seven that's pretty dependable. So
yeah, that'll help.
There it is, the state of the franchise for the Houston Texans. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel below. Check out pff.com for more exclusive content. For Mike Renner, I'm Cam Mellor, and we'll see you again.